retiring, and I knew just like all my friends, I'd get a job as soon as I got out because everybody gets a job as soon as you get out. That's the way it is. But the
Mm-hmm.
problem was that during 20 years of war, a lot of people got those jobs and no one was leaving.
Right.
So there was no job just sitting there waiting. So by the time I hung them up, there was nothing really available. So I moved back to Tennessee to join my family down here. Watched my daughter graduate high school the next month. So, well, she graduated May and I retired June.
Uh-huh.
And then from June 30th of 2015 to July 1st of 2016, I was in the house applying for jobs, trying to get a job, and basically self-reflecting.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I chat about stories and creativity in all different styles and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and my goal is to promote what Dale Carnegie stated in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. It's my firm belief that the goal of most creative people is to try to understand themselves and others. That's what makes artwork of all kinds so compelling. But more than that, the personal stories of my guests promote understanding as well. Roger C. Schenck, a cognitive scientist, said, human beings are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. It's my hope that Story Power will help us understand each other better by sharing the stories of my guests. Hello, today is episode 101, and my guest today is Rich LaMonica. Rich, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. And being episode 101 is amazing because right now I'm sitting at the home of the 101st Airborne Division on Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's so cool. Serendipity. Well, and I also noticed that your email has 101 in it. And I went, oh, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yes, it all had to do with my time here.
Okay, well, let's talk about you, Rich. I was looking over your bio and I was really interested to hear about your 1 year, like I called mine a sabbatical. Mine was 5 years, sabbatical from my life. But yeah, your year of transition after you spent 22 years in the military. And then you are a motivational speaker. You have 2 books,
Yes,
a nonfiction book and a fiction book. And I'm a book lover, so I want to hear about those too. So I'll let
all
you
right.
start where you want to start.
All right, awesome. So I'll start, I guess, towards the end of my career, 2015. I was getting ready to get out of the Army, and I had just finished my fourth deployment ended in 2012, and I PCS to Maryland away from my family for a couple of years, and I was retiring, and I knew just like all my friends, I'd get a job as soon as I got out because everybody gets a job as soon as you get out. That's the way it is. But the problem was that during 20 years of war, a lot of people got those jobs and no one was leaving.
Right.
So there was no job just sitting there waiting. So by the time I hung them up, there was nothing really available. So I moved back to Tennessee to join my family down here. Watched my daughter graduate high school the next month. So, well, she graduated May and I retired June.
Uh-huh.
And then from June 30th of 2015 to July 1st of 2016, I was in the house applying for jobs, trying to get a job, and basically self-reflecting, thinking that maybe it's me at first, that maybe it's the way I'm wording myself, maybe it's I'm not selling myself correctly, maybe I'm too I guess braggadocious or something like that. And then I just sat back and said, damn, this really sucks. And how do I get out of this? So I got with Hire Heroes USA. They looked at my resume. They said, it's good, but we can make it better. And they rewrote it. I didn't understand a word they had on there, but I sent it in, and I had an interview up in Washington, D.C. for Homeland Security Emergency Management up there. So I drove from Tennessee up there. I got there, I did the interview, and they're like, "Oh, well, your education, you went to Ashford University. We don't really know what that college is, so we don't know about that." I said, "Okay, just let me know if you want me for the job." So I started driving back. I was going to go to my in-laws' house in West Virginia, and at the time, I was working with I was volunteering for the Red Cross for the Mission Continues. It's a veteran nonprofit,
Uh-huh.
and they were trying to help me transition a little better. And I stopped and I talked to my fellowship program specialist to say, "Hey, brother, yeah, I just finished this interview. I think it went well, but I don't think they're going to hire me based on my education." He said, "Just stop right there. You don't want that job." I said, "I do want that job. That's why I drove 11 hours to go to interview." He said, "You
Uh-huh.
don't want that job. We got a job here for you." I said, "What?" So he said, "You could become just like me and work right next to me. Just fill out this application." So I did that. Didn't think anything of it. I went to my in-laws' house, finished the application, drove the rest of the way home. Me and my wife went on basically a couples retreat with the Wounded Warrior Project,
Mhm.
and we're doing like all this adventure stuff. And they called me and say, "Hey, you have an interview on Friday." I mean, I said, "Ooh, I get back Thursday night in Nashville. I don't have a suit prepared. This is great." So we're in Mississippi. I'm thinking about this interview. We fly back. We rush back. My wife's ironing my suit. I'm getting everything ready in a little bag. I jump in the car, drive to St. Louis for an interview, and I get out there. "Oh, we wanted to do it virtually." I said,
Oh,
"What?" I said, so so we all went out for pizza. Everyone, they're like, "Oh, let's go get pizza since you're here." I said, "Okay." So we had pizza, we camaraderie, and they all looked around to get a thumbs up. And I sat down with the boss. He interviewed me. He said, "So what's your asking price?" I told him. I didn't think anything of it again. I drove all the way back to Tennessee. He said, "Here's your interview with the vice president of the company." Good, good. I did that. "All right, you want the job? Yeah, you start July 1st. I said, "Woo, 365 days on the couch, and now my wife will be happy."
you probably weren't really sitting on the couch.
I did a lot. That's where I
Yeah.
had the chair. Me and my dogs would sit there. I'd drink beer, give them some beer. We'd watch TV. I'd fill out applications and hope. And
Yes.
finally, something came. And all lights came together, and things worked out.
Yeah. I have my brother-in-law is retired military too. He worked at Fort Huachuca and did taught intelligence classes and things. And so he was not active military. He was reserve, but he's had the same problem. He has had jobs, but they're not anything related to what his skill set is. And so I, I think that is a problem for a lot of veterans because
And it,
maybe is it because of uh, the vocabulary difference and the people, civilian people don't understand what the skill sets are?
some of it is that, and like I said, with my wording of my resume based off what I thought I do, and then Hire Heroes writing it into a way that the civilian world understood it,
Yeah.
it was night and day. It was night and day between bites. Before that, I was getting 0 bites, and all of a sudden, everything started happening. So having an outside set of eyes really helped me out a lot to
Mm-hmm.
make things a little better for me. And I always recommend people to get that outside set to
Mm-hmm.
don't just rest on your laurels and everything that you think you know. There's someone out there that knows what we need to know, and they'll help you out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. So I'll ask him if he what is it hired what's it called?
Hire Heroes US, Hire Heroes USA.
Hire heroes. I'll ask him if he's connected with him. Yeah, okay, great. And then but did you find though that having that time to reflect and think about what you wanted to do was that profitable in terms of finding not just a job but something that you could be happy with?
Yes, 100%. It taught me a lot about being humble and staying hungry
Mhm.
and keep pushing forward and that's keep your hustle going. So hungry, humble, hustle. And that's what I say on my podcast all the time. You got to stay hungry, keep hustling, be humble, and keep hustling. That way, I learned that because I think a lot of people thought I always bragged on myself, but I never really bragged on myself. I was just telling people what I did, and I didn't
Right.
think I was bragging, but it comes across as bragging, of course. So now I've learned to be a lot more humble and just kind of go through and do what I'm supposed to do and
Mhm.
be a better person. And
Mhm.
I found that finding a purpose really helped me out. So while I was with Michigan Continues, I stayed there 2 years, and then I took the job I'm in now. And ironically, I started teaching intelligence when I got here. So ironically, which also I didn't do. I didn't do that in the army, but I was teaching intelligence for my first year, and now I teach
Right.
something else.
Uh-huh.
But it's exciting what I do now. But I also volunteer on the outside, so I help. I'm with the Michigan, not Michigan, the Travis Manion Foundation now, and I'm the chapter leader here in Clarksville. And we go out, we mentor with the youth, and we try to make sure we build the next generation of leaders and show them there are people that care about them, and we can help them become better and do things and do little
Mhm.
service projects. So that's something that keeps me going, serving with purpose for others, and that helps out a lot.
Yeah, really. And so is that what your motivational speaking is about? Is about helping these young people, or do you do it? Just tell about that. Tell about your motivational speaking.
So I kind of talk about my story about hitting that wall, getting out, and the things, all the walls I hit during my career, like getting wounded, losing a soldier, all those little things that you got to keep getting up from. You can't stay down. You once you get hit, you have to get back up. I always reference Wayne Gretzky that saying that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take,
Right.
and if you don't keep getting up, you're just going to stay down. And people are going to look at you as a failure. But if you keep getting up, they look at you as a fighter, and you're going to keep pushing and pushing until you get that success that you're looking for, and maybe be able to pay it back to someone else and push them forward.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, good. So you talk to veterans, but maybe you also talk to other people too, just regular. Yeah.
Yeah, I talk to everybody. Yeah,
Yeah. Anybody and
my
everybody who
wife,
will listen.
my wife gets angry sometimes. I just stop and talk to people anywhere we are. Hey, how are you? Where are you from?
That's great. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
You're, you love talking to people. That's why you have your
Uh,
podcast, and your podcast is called
yes.
Misfit Nation. Yeah.
Yes.
Tell about your
The
podcast.
Misfit Nation. So their name comes from the platoon I was platoon sergeant for in Afghanistan in 2010 and 11. We were called the Misfits because everyone in the platoon came from different areas, different units to make up this platoon. So it was like the Island of Misfit Toys.
Mm-hmm.
So we called ourselves the Misfits, all the castaways basically.
Uh-huh.
And it stayed together. We're one big family now, and we've stayed in touch ever since then. Of course, in the Army, you go different directions every year or
Right.
two, but
Yeah.
we all stay close, especially with social media and stuff. It's a lot easier now to stay in touch with people than it was for the generation before us.
Right.
And when the pandemic came about, I just finished my master's at Georgetown, and I was like, well, I have 8 hours a week. I don't have allotted to anything. And I sat with my wife and said, maybe I'll start a podcast. If Joe Rogan does it, I can do it. So I went in. I said I can do it. So I started recording just in my Jeep. I'd park in the parking lot across from the base here, and interview people in my Jeep.
Uh-huh.
And I realized how horrible it sounded. So I started buying microphones. Now I have a travel kit. I have an office at home. But hearing other people's stories, the original version of it was to have just veterans come on
Mm-hmm.
and tell their story so they get that pressure off their chest and maybe stay with us a little longer. And
Yeah.
then they said, hey, man, this is awesome, but we need other help. We need people that tell us about mental health, people to tell us how to start a business, how to write a book, how to get to Hollywood, how to get music. And I said, okay, challenge accepted. Let me see if I can get any guests. And all of a sudden, once you open up the floodgates, they come and
Yes.
they just keep reaching out to me. I have this I can tell you about. I can tell. Good, come on, bring it. My first two authors are from New Zealand, so I interviewed them. I
Uh-huh.
think it was 10 o'clock our time and probably 9 in the morning there the next day. So it was
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool, talking into the future and learning about how their process of writing books, and people love that. So then I got local authors that maybe weren't it. I didn't have to stay up as late to do it and get more authors
Right.
on. Had musicians. I knew a former sailor who was in Hollywood, so I had him come on to tell about how to get in Hollywood. So
Uh-huh.
it works out pretty well.
Yeah, that's cool. So is that why you joined Podmatch? Because I in 2022, I recorded a whole bunch of episodes at the beginning, and it was probably a couple of months ago I finished up those those interviews. Podmatch found me somehow, but yeah, I have met people from all over the world. And yeah, the time zone thing
Yes.
is kind of weird. Yeah, I even
Yeah.
talked to an Iranian filmmaker, which that was a fascinating thing. But
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So I just love connecting with people and hearing their
Yes.
stories. And so it sounds like you like the same thing. Now,
Definitely. Yes.
speaking of being an author and what's your process, you have two books.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
so tell about your books.
So the first one was a 13-step guide to success,
Yeah.
which during the first year of the pandemic, every month on Facebook, I'd write something at the end of the month. Yay, you made it to this level of Jumanji. You fought off this demon. Because every month they were telling us new fears and stuff. So I said, you
Uh-huh.
fought off this. Next month you get to challenge this.
Yes.
And at the end of the year, I made 13 steps to make yourself a better person. And my daughter's like, you need to put that in the book. Because
Uh-huh.
my daughter got published right out of high school with a book called The Unexpected. So I wrote it and I sent it to her, and she edited it. And after a while of going back and forth, arguing with each other, the book got published, of course.
Uh-huh.
And so it was just a book on how to be a better human, not to be successful in business or nothing like that. It's how to be
Right.
a self help to be a better human.
Mm-hmm.
Create a better community. Don't worry about what's happening at 1600 Pennsylvania. Worry about what's happening at your address,
Right.
and then spread out to your neighborhood, to your community. Build that better, and everything else will happen after that. And it's done pretty well.
Oh,
And so
cool.
she was my editor on that one. And for my second book, Out of the Darkness,
Oh, yeah.
I wrote this. I've been writing this for a long time. I kept writing and stopping, writing and stopping, writing and stopping.
Mm-hmm.
And then I figured this year I put it on my board in front of my desk. I said, "You will finish this book." So I wrote it and I sent it to her. She gave me quick tips because I knew a process from the first book. I knew what not to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of corrected a lot of that stuff. She taught me some character development. I did that. And I got the book out by September 11th was my goal. And that's the day I published it.
Oh, wow.
And this book it's based off many soldiers and people I've served with in the military, all combined different characters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fictional, but based on some reality in there. And it's
Mm-hmm.
about a soldier's journey and how going to war constantly and then finding himself at the end of that line when it's about to get out and burnt out and
Oh,
losing
yeah.
his friends and then the mental health problems and stuff like that and coming
Yeah.
out of it at the end. So it's a good trial, and I already started the second part of it. So she
Oh,
has me motivated.
oh, good. A sequel. A
Yes,
sequel. Oh, cool. Yeah,
yes,
that's good. Now, one thing that I didn't really realize because I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, I didn't grow up in a military town or anything. So when we moved to Arizona to Sierra Vista and Fort Huachuca was here, one thing that I learned is because I was teaching theater classes at the college and at high school, and one thing I learned, well, high school first and then the college, uh, from the people who moved here and who were part of military families is it was always kind of difficult when the person who was coming home from an assign no, you don't call it an assignment, a mission or a what do you call it? I'm not a military
deployment,
person.
deployment,
Appointment. Oh,
a deployment.
deployment. Deployment. That's right. That's what you
Yes,
call it. Yeah, that it was always like a big adjustment for everybody
yes,
when they came home. So,
yes.
is that part of your motivational speaking as well, is how to reintegrate into the family?
That's part of mentorship I'll do with people because it's different from every family, of course. But like for me, my wife will be married 30 years here to come next May, and
Wow.
that's an anomaly. That's an anomaly in the military. A lot
Yeah.
of the people don't make it that long because of deployments and
Right.
constantly being gone, and always having that new thing when you come home. So I learned early that when I'm gone, she's in charge. And I come back and she's still in charge. I just do what she says and kind of do what she asks of me. Don't try to take over, and that's where some of the problems come in. One spouse will be deployed, the other spouse will be at home running the house, raising the children, and the spouse will come home and think that they can come in and like a tornado and start over, and I'm in charge now.
Mm,
You can't do that, and that ruins a lot of connections that you have, and
uh-huh.
sometimes you can't repair them, and it ends the marriage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you have to fit into what's been going on in the family if you're coming home.
Right.
Yeah.
If you
Um,
think of it, you think of it like, say, an aquarium you have in your house with fish,
mhm,
and you finally get the pH level to the right level, and then you
mhm,
go to the store and you find another fish you think that's going to be cool in there,
mhm.
and you put it in there, and it gets foggy, and one of the fish don't like each other, and that's what kind of you think of it like that. Then you have
Yeah.
to go read through that whole process.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, because one of my very favorite classic movies is The Best Years of Our Lives, and it shows not only the three men who are coming home from World War II, but how it's so difficult for the families because the person that left is not the person who came home. They
Definitely
got
not.
changed while they were gone, and so they have to it's hard on the families too.
Yes.
Yeah.
After my second deployment, I came home. I think it was 2004. I came home, and my wife and daughter both told me something's wrong. You've changed, Daddy. Changed, and I said, no, I didn't. You changed. I didn't change. It's all you. And
Ah.
I never wanted. I didn't admit I had a problem until probably 2011 when I came home for my first Afghanistan deployment, and
Oh,
I knew things were messed up because I had lost a soldier on December 31st, 2010, and I went through all
oh,
that and helped everybody else, and I didn't seek help. I made sure they all had help, and when I
yeah.
came home, I asked for help, and I was told, "You're a leader. You can take care of yourself and go back to work." So I was like, "Awesome." And it wasn't until 2015 when I finally sat down with somebody and said, "Look, I have problems. You need to talk to me and tell me how to get through this." And I
Mhm.
started the process. And when I retired, I tried the VA. That didn't work for me. So I went to a civilian doctor, and me and him hit it off right away. He took care of me, showed me what to do. And I've been better ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. Because not just soldiers go through that kind of thing, but
No, no.
everybody goes through changes. I mean, my husband and I have been married 43 years, and we're different people than when we first got married, you know,
Definitely.
and we've been together, but you go because you grow and change. So, yeah. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's fantastic that you and your wife have been together so long because I can't really imagine what it would be like to have somebody be gone for 2 years and then have them come home
Multiple
again.
times too. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Really. Oh, wow.
constantly going, coming back. Yeah. So,
Mm-hmm.
and she was always a rock. She'd send gifts for me, for all my soldiers. She was the best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It must be hard to be a supportive military wife too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because it's
especially
like
when you're doing the
oh,
whole CEO thing at home. You're the CEO, and then it's like we're doing our job, but we're doing something we love overseas or wherever we are at the time, and then we come
uh-huh.
home. You're still being CEO. You don't get that break.
Right. Yes. Yeah. And she must be part of support groups and stuff with family support groups of people who are deployed. Is she part of that?
She has a lot of She has a lot of close friends that she developed a lot over the years, over
Mm,
places we were stationed. She tried the family readiness groups, they called them, and she didn't like I guess the cliquishness of it,
mm,
and because there's cliques in everything you do in life, and she doesn't like that. She doesn't like drama,
yeah.
so
Oh,
she picked people that resonated with her, and she stayed with them, and they're
that's
still
good.
good friends now, all of them. So it's awesome.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. 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 I mean, I taught theater and I don't like drama either. I don't mind the drama on stage, but I don't like it,
Right.
which is part of the reason why I stopped teaching high school because there's a lot of drama among the
A
students.
lot of extra drama. Yes. And my wife teaches eighth grade right now, so she sees it every day.
Oh, my hat is off to her. I did 1 year of seventh grade and I said, oh my God, I about died and said, I'm
Yeah.
never doing middle school again. Yeah, high school was bad enough. Yeah. So your daughter is is she a writer or is she at like working at a publishing company and that's how she helps you? Did she help you?
She took creative writing in college after she
Oh,
published her book.
uh-huh.
So she she sat down in orientation, and I guess the head or dean of that department came in and said, "How many of you think you're going to write a book because you're in this class?" And she raised her hand, and he's like, "Well, it's great to think that way." And then she held up her books, and I did already, and she published her book. And was, oh, okay. And so she went through then she went to school for it, and now she's my editor, personal editor. But she kind of pivoted. She's hooked on fitness, so she has her own fitness company now. Plus, she works at 2 different gyms right now, so she's doing really well.
Oh, cool. That's so cool. Yeah. My background's in theater, and I didn't take I took playwriting classes, but I didn't in my master's program. But that's different than writing a novel. And then I wrote a novel. It was like, oh, I should have maybe taken some creative writing classes in college. But I'm working on my second one now. And I've hooked up with someone who is going to help. I mean, my husband's a graphic artist, and he designed my book. He designed the cover. Nice. He helped me edit. But I have a kind of like a writing partner now, somebody who will read it. So you need that because, when you're writing and do you find this when I'm writing and I think it's so good. And then, but I don't see the whole plot holes, or I don't see the parts that are dragging the plot down. And so you need somebody to kind of be a second eye for you.
Or when you kind of start writing like you talk, and you can't do that because you'll lose some of the audience that way, because not everyone wants to listen to how you are. It must be how they are, the person.
Right. The characters. Yeah. Well, that part's easy for me because I was an actress. So that part's, but you're right. Yeah. Each character has to have their own personality and their
own voice and stuff. Yeah. So,
right.
She taught me that. She said, you got to change this. You have to change this. You can't say that. Oh, okay.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. That's great. Now, is she still writing?
She probably does a little writing here and there, but she hasn't shared anything with me in a while. So. But she's been very busy launching her business and stuff. So I have to take her. I walk the grand dogs every afternoon for her since she's out working so much.
The grand dogs. I love that. Yes. That's so great. Yeah. So you live in Kentucky now. Where did you start from? Where did you hail from when you were younger?
Well, I work on Fort Campbell, Kentucky. I live in Tennessee, right over. It's a border. The border's right there. So.
Tennessee.
But I'm originally. I'm originally from New Jersey, Jersey City, New Jersey. I was born and raised there. 1970, I was born the fourth of 4 children, so they saved the best for last. I tell my dad all the time. Actually, I had him on my show a couple weeks ago, and I was up there. I said, Dad, I need to interview you so we have some of your history recorded. So he said, yeah, let's do it. We did it, and I introduced him. I said, and I am the fourth but the best son, so here I am doing this for you. But I grew up there. Mom and dad, hard workers, both of them. Mom didn't finish high school, but she worked constantly, beauty school and all that stuff. She worked multiple jobs, 60s, 70s, 80s. Dad worked for an electric company. Then he owned a bar, drove a truck, worked for the morgue, all at the same time, doing all the stuff to make sure all of us had everything we could ever need. Not everything we wanted, but what we needed to make it through life. And taught us valuable lessons along the way. I left there in 1988. I was going to graduate high school. So the year before, I told him, let's go to the recruiting office. I'm going to sign up for the Army. He's like, no, you're not joining the Army. I said, what? He said, enough of us have joined. You're going to go to college. And I had not taken a class to go to college at that point. I said, okay, I guess I have to take a lot of classes this year. So my senior year, instead of hanging out, I got to take 3 maths, 2 sciences, and I guess an extra English, so I can get into college, get the right prerequisites to go to college, and then, of course, take the SAT. So I did all that, and somehow I did it. I got to college, and I said, all right, and I got in. He said, all right, how are you going to pay for it? I said, you wanted me to go. so I had to get loans, of course, and get through that. And I tried it for a few years. I played college football. I walked on and played college football at St. Peter's College. And I had a blast, but I wasn't a good student at that time. I wasn't ready for college. So I finally I said, Dad, I'm going in. I have to do it. you can't stop me now. I'm old enough. So I
Yeah,
joined it. And
right.
22 years after that, I retired.
Yeah. And you finished your degree at some point.
I finished my bachelor's degree in 2015. So
Yeah.
January 2015, just before I retired, I finally finished my bachelor's degree. And when I was so happy, I finally got that burden off my back, the elephant off the back there.
Yeah.
I finished that, and then I became, I guess, a lifelong learner after that. I said, now I'm going to try to get a master's. Now I'm going for my PhD at Liberty. So
Yeah.
this is great.
Yeah, that is great. Yeah. I was like you. After I graduated, I said I don't want to go to college right away, so I worked for 4 years. And then my dad had dyslexia, so he didn't even finish high school, but he had been in the Air Force and he got a job at the Bremerton shipyards. He was a machinist. And so I moved with them from Spokane to Bremerton, and then they said we'll pay for your first year of college, and so I went to college. Yeah, when I was 22,
Nice.
and it was great because I was ready to study.
Right.
When I was 22, I was ready to study. I didn't want to be well, I was never a partier anyway, but yeah, I didn't want to goof off. I was ready. Yeah. So I advocate because when I was teaching community college, I had students who were in their 50s going to school
Yeah.
or who were still in high school taking college classes. So I had this
Right.
wide range
Gap.
of students, yeah, of age gaps. And it was so great to see how they got along together. I loved it. I loved that. Yeah. So I didn't even really know what I wanted to do with my life until I was 53. I mean, I taught, I loved it. I loved teaching all those years, but yeah, writing and podcasting, being creative, that's what I always really wanted to do. I just didn't know it until I was 53.
Right.
So I tell my students, who say, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And I said, well, I didn't know until I was 53. So don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. Yeah. Well,
It'll all come together.
that's right. Yeah. Like it
Yeah.
did for you. Like it did for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Last minute thoughts for our listeners.
If you want to send your listeners to my show, The Misfit Nation, check us out, or go to my website, misfitnation.com, get your copy of either book or some of our cool gear that we have to help our podcast keep moving forward. That'd be great. Of course, it's always great to be on someone else's show and share my story, and I like being on the other side of the mic sometimes.
Yeah, it is fun, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that too. Do you have a book that you want to, or story that you want to share, like a television show or something that you want is
But,
meaningful to you, or a movie?
a movie that's meaningful to me, probably We Were Soldiers once or Black Hawk Down. Both of them are
Oh
about
yeah.
the closest to realistic movies about war. I love both of them. The way they were put together were great. Both books are actually much better, of course, but Hollywood has to do Hollywood stuff. They were great books. You have
Mm-hmm.
a story closer to my life would be A Bronx Tale.
Oh yeah.
I grew up in that area as an Italian American up there.
Yeah.
I'm second generation Italian American, so it's kind of the same story we grew up in. It's amazing that when I watch that movie, I just giggle a lot, and my wife
Uh-huh.
hates it, but I'll turn it on anytime it comes on.
Because you
Book
can
I just
relate.
read a yes. uh, I've read a bunch of books over the last couple of months. One of them, Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That's a great book on leadership, taking ownership for your actions. And a lot of people need to understand that if you make a decision as a leader, it doesn't just affect you; it affects people all around you and three iterations of things around you.
Yeah.
So I'm always reading now to try to find new things. And uh, Atomic Habits is another book I just read too, by James Clear, another good book to really get
Cool.
you focused on making good habits.
Yeah, and it sounds like your book. Um, I'm going to say the name again. 13 guides
Step
to
Guide to Success.
yeah. I forgot to put step. 13 step guide to success. Right. And that, I love the idea of just being a better human. I love books like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, it's not going to make you $1 million, but you'll be happy.
Well, that's right. Well, and there's a new book that just came out. Oprah wrote it with someone, a professor, about being happy and, having money and being famous. And none of that makes you happy. It has to do with other things. So sounds like your book
Yes.
is like that too. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
So your podcast is available on what platforms?
All podcast platforms, and then
Okay.
on Sunday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, I'm live on all of the Misfit Nation social medias and my own social medias and YouTube. I do a live show every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time.
Wow. Okay. Wow, you're a busy guy.
So tonight at 7 Central, I'll have John McLaughlin. He's an author. He was a businessman. He's an author. He goes into prisons now and tries to give people that second chance and talk to them and guide them to a better life after.
Oh, wow. John McLaughlin. I'm writing his name down.
Yeah.
And did you find him on Podmatch?
Yeah, he found me on Podmatch.
Okay, good. I'll go look him up. Great. Well, thank you so much for being my guest. I really appreciate our conversation.
It's been great. Thanks for reaching back out to me and telling me that you're so packed up. That's a good problem to have, but thank you.
Yeah, really.
You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a rating and/or review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or if you like, you can subscribe to Story Power on Apple Podcasts. It's my aim to build a community where we discuss the stories we love and talk about what we learned from them. I offer extra audio content and story suggestions to my patrons on both platforms. Remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Let's spread the story love. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.